I just woke up from a nap, feeling a little groggy, but I'm ready to do some sewing. So, are you terrified of princess seams? Are you just like, I can't sew these things without them puckering? I cannot do it. Well, I'm going to show you how I do it, and they're going to turn out amazing. So this is the pattern we're working on. It's a 1993 vintage pattern by Butterick. And oh my god, it looks so good. Let me spin you around and show you where we are. Dun, dun, dun. So this is the secret to sewing princess seams. You pin the heck out of them. Pin the heck out of your princess seams. And then make sure when you're pinning that your pin goes in right exactly where your stitch line's going to be. So this pattern calls for 5/8 inch seam allowance. That's what this line marking is here. And this is where my pins have gone in. Now once you're all pinned, and you're sure that there's no wrinkles in there, you just keep pinning. Pinning. Anytime you got a little puff or a wrinkle, you put another pin in between there and you get it nice and flat that way. So once that's done, you take a single piece of thread. I don't have it doubled up, it's just one piece. That way your needle isn't going to get caught on it. And you just run some, ooh, what's this kind of stitch called? A tailor stitch. You just run that through. And again, you're going right in where your seam is going to be sewn in. So let me get these pins out of here. And then let's sew a perfect princess seam. How is everybody tonight? I'm exhausted, and I'm also excited for the full moon tomorrow. We've got such amazing fall weather here where I am on the East Coast, and the moon has been spectacular. The past couple of nights I've been outside and really enjoying it. All right, pins are coming out. Getting all these out of here. I wonder how many were in here to begin with. Probably like, I'm gonna guess I had about 30 pins. That's my best guess. It's worth doing the extra work, because if you've ever sewn princess seams, or if you're thinking about sewing princess seams, it's really tricky to get them to look good. And who wants to have waves and ripples and all kinds of weird stuff happen around their chest on a beautiful, glamorous dress like this? Nobody does. So take some extra time, put all those pins in, do your tacking stitches, and now we're gonna sew a perfect princess seam. Close your eyes if you get dizzy. I'm gonna take you over to my machine, which is a Singer Stylist 457. Her name is Dirty Gertie. She's amazing. And I'm sewing with a walking foot on here, and I also have a Microtex needle. So let's see what we can do now. What I've read is when you're sewing this, it's preferable to have the flatter side facing up, and your side that has like more of the wrinkling and stuff like that in it. So basically, I think it's usually going to be the, let me think about this. I think it's usually going to be the inner panel. So like your center front that's going to be facing down, and your this material has some heft to it, so I really don't want it to be pulling as I'm sewing, so I'm just trying to figure out a way to not have that happen. But basically what I'm trying to say about that is we can put it so that our, you know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say there's no hard and fast rules here. When you're sewing these princess seams, set it up however you want. But whether you do the flatter side facing up or facing down, I think it's really important that you want to make sure your fabric isn't stretching or pulling in any way. And you're going to want to go real slow. That's going to help the cause a lot. So we're going to get started right here. I've got a tailor's tack and also a mark. This is where the seam is going to get started. You know, this is some slippery polyester, folks. Slippery, slippery stuff. So we got that pinned right there to kind of help me get started. And now let's start sewing. Just anything that's got any kind of puckering, creasing, wrinkles, anything like that, just going to flatten out nice and good. And I'm also going to put my little magnetic seam guide over here to help give me some support as well. But I'm just going to be following right along where I marked the stitch line. So let's go and we'll start with a back stitch. Going so slow here. Now you might wonder, why did you take out the pins? Why did you bother to do all those hand tacks? Because yeah, you can sew over pins, but sewing over like 30 pins in a row like that just seemed like a little risky. And I thought that this would really get the fabric flatter too, because then you don't have the bulk of the pins causing waves. So try this trick if you want to have perfect princess seams. I think you're going to be impressed when I show you the final product. Okay, nice and slow around this curve here. That feels good. One thing I really like about sewing is how tactile it is. You know, you're using really your sense of touch and trying to get little wrinkles and all these little things situated. And then you're also, oh my gosh, so much hand-eye coordination with sewing. It's like people who play video games and stuff, I remember when I was a kid, they would be like, oh, it's good for your hand-eye coordination. Sewing is unbeatable for hand-eye coordination. It's like, yeah, watch me, watch me. Ready? All right, so now we're just getting to the straight side of the dress. That was the whole bust area where the princess seam goes, and now this seam goes all the way down. We're doing an ankle length dress. So this is going to be quite a bit of sewing down this stretch. I love the long stretches where you just keep going. Okay, so now let me do this. Oh my goodness. All right. Now I have like the fabric on my lap, so it's still not pulling. I really want to look and see and make sure that there's no accidental puckers in there, but I'm going to have to be patient and we'll take a look at the end. All right. Now, let's do it. I'm a little bit not where I want to be right now. What's that about? It's because my fabric is kind of stretching out of the way. That's a little bit better. Take that upstairs, neighbors. You think it's late, but it's only 6:10. Okay. We've got about a 1.5 feet left to go. We're so close to the end. Oh boy, my whole dress is like falling off the back here. I'm like trying to hold it up. And this is our last little bit. So let me get to the end and we'll back stitch down here. All right, folks. We got our front seam done. Oh my gosh. How do you think it's gonna look? Do you think it's gonna be princess seam perfection? Or do you think we're gonna have a pucker in there? Oof. Let's find out. Dun, 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 dun. All right, so this is, to me, looking pretty good. Oh yes, oh yes. Oh, yeah, I think that looks good. So let's take out these little tailor's stitches here. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. This fabric is gorgeous. I am in love with this color. It's just going to be an amazing dress. All right, so now my fingers aren't so great. I'm going to use my little seam ripper to pull out these stitches. And it's going to be a little tricky because they all got sewed over, right? But it shouldn't be too bad. You know what they call it when you're seam ripping? Rip it, rip it, rip it. This isn't really seam ripping though, because we didn't mess up. We did these little tailor stitches here so that we would not have to do any seam ripping in the future, because we're gonna have perfect princess seams. Perfect princess seams on this gorgeous 90s vintage dress. Oh my goodness. I'm super excited for this. I am so excited for this. Now, one thing I was thinking before I started the live stream is, I thought the back of the dress was getting an invisible zipper. And then I was thinking about it some more and, you know, read the pattern envelope. And I'm like, it's not saying use an invisible zipper. I had just made that assumption, you know, it's kind of like a gown. It's a little bit fancier. I'm like, yeah, usually you do an invisible zipper, right? But I'm not sure if that's truly what they're asking for. I mean, it's fine to install an invisible zipper, even if they say to use a universal with, you know, some, I forget the terms for it, but basically you could, And it'll show us in the instructions if you're gonna have like a zipper with a little bit of fabric that like folds over to hide it. But I really prefer an invisible zip. The only thing I don't prefer about an invisible zip is that sometimes it's hard to pull up the zipper. And this one is in center back. So pulling up your own invisible zipper in center back is, you know, it could be a little tricky. So think about that, guys. If you have someone to help you zip and unzip, it's fine. But if you don't, sometimes, and this is the cool part about sewing, you can move your zipper. Like, if I had thought more about this pattern, I might have considered putting the zipper in at the side instead of in the center back. And this is the third dress I'm ever sewing in my life. And the previous two both had side zippers, like underneath the armpit area. Oh my gosh, look at this gorgeous princess seam. It looks so good, just like I knew it would. Oh goodness, oh my goodness. So what I'm gonna do in a little bit is I'm going to press the princess seam. What did I do for the other side? So I just pressed it towards center front, and I pressed both sides that direction. There's different options for finishing your seams. So this is basically, I mean, I wish I could get my serger to work. I really wish I could get my serger to work, because then what I could do is I could just serge along here, and you know, the serger would cut off the extra seam allowance. Another option would be to trim the seam allowance, zigzag stitch the edges to prevent the fraying. But yeah, I like it. I'm very happy with it. So next step, oh, look at how pretty this is. Oh, I love this neckline. I absolutely love this sweetheart neckline. It's gonna be so gorgeous. So next up, we'll take a look over here. This is what we just did. And this is how we're constructed right now. I already sewed this one up for the side with the leg slit. Now we're gonna do our fisheye seams in the two back pattern pieces. So I've already done one, and I got one left to go. So let's spin you around, close your eyes if you get dizzy, and let's sew some fisheye darts. Did you know that out of all the darts, fisheye darts are my favorite ones? I just think they're really fun. You start at the center for these, okay? So let's figure out where that is. It's gonna be right here is our center. Right there. Let me show you real close what I'm looking at. That's the dot. Go right there. Press your foot down. And let's, that doesn't look right where I want it, exactly where I want it. This fabric is so slippery. It's like just shifting around everywhere. Okay, so here's where we're gonna start. And what I do is I just mark, you know, the holes for the seams, and then for the last dot right there where it's ending, I like to put a pin there that's just gonna show me this is where I sew right off the side. And then the center part, we're not going to back stitch, because what I do at the end is I just tie the threads on each side to each other to put a knot in there. So let's get our fisheye darts. Ready, set, sew. Okay, now the other trick is I get closer and closer to the end here, I'm going to shorten my stitch length. And that's just going to make it so that you're going to have real nice dart ends here. So right now I'm at a stitch length of 12. I'm going to flip it up to like 20-ish when I get around here. And you just stitch right off your fabric that way. For the end of the dart. And what I was referring to, I'm sewing on a vintage machine, so instead of stitch length measured in millimeters, it's measured in stitches per inch. So 12 stitches per inch is less, well, the stitches are longer than 20 stitches per inch, where the stitches are shorter, closer together. Does that make sense? All right, so now we can do the other side over here, and we're just gonna get that dot lined up again. I'll flip you over here for a better view. And I'm going to try to make sure that these threads are out of the way as well, because it's easy to get caught on things when you don't want to. And you certainly don't want to do that. So here, we're right on that same dot to get started. And I'm back to 12 stitches per inch. Let's go. Just following along where the dots are. All right, pretty close here. Let me get this guy out a little further, and then I'll switch it up to 20. 20, and stitch right off the side of the fabric. Very good, very good. What am I doing? Here we go. Oops. So here's what, can you see how much closer they get to each other at the end than here? Here's what these guys look like, and here's where the stitches started at that center dot. So I'm just going to tie a little knot. That way we won't come undone. We don't want any of our darts ripping, do we? No, never. And then at each of the ends as well, I'm going to tie the two thread ends into knots. Tying knots is hard with fumbly fingers. Oh my goodness. I'm doing a good job. Okay. All right. Now these guys, sometimes they get a little twisted up. So let me see if I can untwist. Oh my gosh, it's tricky. I always wonder if it's as painful for you all to watch this as it is for me to try to do it. All right, almost there. Sewing certainly teaches patience, doesn't it? Teaches so many things. Oh my goodness. I've learned an incredible amount of skills, of techniques, of just really like incredible stuff this past year and a half or so that I've started sewing. Okay. There we go. Oops. It's like you think you got it, and then you're like, I don't think that one worked. All right, we're done. So let me snip off these ends here. This will look really good. And oh my gosh, what's the next step gonna be? Oh, this is so exciting. So this dress is going to, I think it's gonna need a lining. I'm actually going to revisit that. I mean, it's got, obviously in the instructions, it's got how to do the lining. And then it's also gonna have a self-facing at the top where we're gonna be using the same, you know, the fashion fabric for the dress. And I think it's going to be really cool. When I sewed up a toile for this, I used some cotton fabric, and then I used some really cheapo, like, stretch polyester fabric from Walmart to sew the lining. That was actually, like, kind of a second toile, but it ended up, I think, being good enough for the lining. I'm a little bit concerned, so that fabric, the gold fabric for the lining, like I said, it had a little bit more stretch to it than this gorgeous red fabric does for the dress. So I might end up taking a look at that down the line and possibly altering it so that the seams are just a little bit, you know, bigger. So then that way, because you basically want your lining to be a little bit teeny tiny little bit smaller than your dress, okay? Because obviously it's going to be closer to your body than the dress. But it's really subtle. You know, you don't want to make it so it's like a ½ inch smaller on the seams, but if you're dealing with a fabric that has some stretch, maybe. So anyway, that's just something I've been thinking about. All right, so next steps. We've got our fisheye darts done, and next it's telling us that we can stitch the two back sections together at the center back, and we're going to leave open above the large dot. So this is the center back, and this is where later on our zipper is going to be installed. I'm just going to sew from there down to where the dress would be near the ankles. So let's get eyes on this, and trying to figure out which side is which side is center back and which side is the side. Oh, all right, here's our other half. Here's the better half, gang. So let me, here, I'm gonna get this piece out over here so it's not sliding off the table. And this one already slid down. Let me pick it up. All right, so let's get situated here and see what we're working with. Now, this is the wrong side of our fabric, and this has the markings on it, so this is gonna make it a lot easier. This is where our zipper is going to be going in. So we're going to be sewing from here down, and again, it's just going to be along same 5/8 inch seam allowance. So this is exciting. There's one thing here I didn't cut off. Let me do that while I see it. These tails of this thread, and then we'll do some pinning. And I don't know who here is watching, but if you don't sew, anytime you're putting pattern pieces together of your fabric, you're always going to be putting them so that they're right sides together. So this is the right side, the shiny, beautiful side. This is the wrong side of the fabric. So let me get this situated. This is the right side facing up down here at the bottom. And then we're going to put the top piece so that the right side is facing toward the same right side of the fabric. And I'll do some pins in here to just hold it still. Oh my god, this is such gorgeous fabric. This was a find from a thrift store. I believe it's like originally a tablecloth. And there was a pretty good amount of it. I'd say I probably got like at least 3 yards of fabric. It was like over 60 inches wide. So I'm sewing up for this pattern, I think a size, I'm petite, so I took some length off, and I think I'm sewing up a size 10 for this, vintage size 10. So that's plenty of fabric for me, and it's so exciting. Where did my pins go? Here they are. I'm not going to mark my seam allowance here like I did for the princess seams because I pretty much know where they are. I really had just done that so that I could see where the pins would go. For that part of the princess seam, so that I could see exactly, like what I'm trying to say, where I could see where the seam allowance or where the stitch line would be, so that everything was where it was supposed to be for the 5/8 inch. But sometimes for this pinning, I mean, putting in pins and taking them out is a little bit annoying, and I'm kind of like wanting to just put the pins over to the side so that I don't necessarily have to take them out when I sew. Sometimes I'll forget one. but also it's nice to have them in a place where it's actually doing the trick of holding the fabric where it's supposed to be held together. And it's doing that just fine. Oh my gosh, one of my friends knitted me a hat, and I think it came today. Oh, not a hat. She knitted me a scarf, and I think it came today. I'm super excited. I'm gonna check out the mailbox if it came after the live stream ends. Because it's gotten so chilly here, you guys. I turned on my heat for the first time today, not because I felt like I needed it. I mean, it was 64 in my place. So it wasn't like, you know, roasty toasty warm, but I also was not like feeling like, oh, I'm so cold. Because I use like, you know, I bundle up. I'll use like, often I'm laying on a heating pad during the day or like heated blankets. Or I'm wearing my little sleeping bag slippers on my feet. So close your eyes if you get dizzy. We're going back to the machine. So anyway, my friend was like, it's okay, Terry, it's mid-November, like, you can turn on your heat. And she had the point, like, why don't you just turn it on and make sure it works? Because you don't want to actually have, like, a super cold day where you're like, oh my God, I'm freezing, I need to turn on the furnace. And then it's like, oh no, I haven't run it since, you know, last April or whatever, and now it's not working. So it worked. It barely had any of that bad smell at all. I hate that smell. And yeah, roasty toasty now. Hi everybody. We're half an hour into doing some sewing on this gorgeous 90s dress. I am in love with the neckline on this dress, and I'm really excited to see what the leg slit is going to look like too. Oh, it's so good. All right, so let's get started here, and we're going to start with a back stitch up top. Come on. All right, here we go. So I am going to pull out these pins before it falls down behind the machine, because otherwise sometimes they get like stuck on stuff. Nice. Oh, this fabric is stunning. Do any of you have fun New Year's plans? Because if you do, and you want to sew a dress to go somewhere, I really recommend this pattern. All right, we're coming to the end here, and once again, I'm just going to take these pins out. And it's really pulling because of all the weight. So let me bring this back up here. Take the weight off. And let's see. I feel like we're lined up at the edge here, but why are we? Okay, good. Seams look good at the side. It's just like a little pulled. It's okay. That is okay. So let's finish up here. It's real hard, I find, at the end of the material like that to not stretch it, but we're doing good. I got hair everywhere. Just like super annoying, but oh my gosh. Story of my life. My hair has gotten so long. It's kind of extreme right now. All right, we got our two back pieces sewn together. And let's see what we got. I'm going to show you how far we've come. Oh my gosh, guys. So I am definitely going to give this a nice press. One thing to be aware of when sewing polyester, like satin materials, is it can be a little bit puckery or wavy where you're putting your seams in. And what I found for this fabric is that the Microtex needle and the walking foot were definitely helping make that better. And once I iron press this seam, this back seam, I'm probably going to press it open so that half goes that way, half goes that way. I think it's going to look really a lot better than it does right now. So here, I'll show you an example. This is the front piece that we sewed over here. And this is the side that I pressed earlier. This is the side that hasn't been pressed yet. So yeah, I think it looks great. We are at a step now where I need to do some ironing. And I think, friends, I'm going to stop here with the live stream. So thank you so much for tuning in. Super duper excited about this project. It's just going to be a really, really nice piece of clothing that I think I'm going to get a lot of use out of. And you know what? You don't need to wait until New Year's Eve to wear a burgundy party dress. Like, I can just wear this on Tuesday. You know what I mean? So thanks for watching. Happy sewing. And I'll be back again 6 p.m. Eastern on Thursday next week. Sometimes I'll give you a little bit of bonus sewing on Sundays at 6 Eastern. We'll see how it goes this weekend. Bye!